Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. I really have not posted anything to, my YouTube channel for quite a while. And so what I wanted to do was, I've been working on something here at home, building a little bit of a home recording studio. And I thought, geez, maybe I should just kind of make a video that kind of shows a bit about it. And it is a work in progress. I mean, I've got a bunch of stuff done. I don't really have any sound treatment up, and there are a lot of reflective surfaces in here, but it's a work in progress. But so far I've got something that does work, and I'll just take you through that. And, it might give you some ideas, if you're kind of considering something at home. Believe me, this is not fancy, but it's very workable. And there's a lot of flexibility in it. Specifically, what I mean by that is on the guitar amplifier side. That's kind of one of the things I really wanted to show was, how to get the guitar recording process set up in a way that is kind of easy. There's certainly lots of ways you can mic up amplifiers. I'm not doing that, and I'll show you that. That's over at the far side of the room. What you're seeing here is the drum kit that I'm using. This is a Tama Star Classic Performer BB. The BB stands for Birch Babinga, and it's in a red oyster wrap, which is a pretty cool color. So that is the main kit I'm using. 5.5 by 14 snare, 12 by 8 high tom, and a 16 by 16 inch floor tom. And the kick drum is 22 by 16.5. So, pretty standard. I do have a 14 by 14 floor tom, which sounds great as well. And sometimes I run one up, two down. I also have a 10-inch tom. I have run two up, two down, or the classic two up, one down in terms of high toms and your low toms. But right now I'm just keeping it really simple, and I'm running it as a four-piece that you see here. Let's see, what else can I tell you? So the shells, Birch Babinga. Babinga is, I guess, a hardwood, and they sandwich that in between layers of birch to kind of give it that kind of pithy projection tone. And the cymbals I'm using here are Sabian line, the hand hammered. So they call them the HH line of cymbals. And these ones in particular are what they call the remastered versions. So around 2015, they brought out a new line of HH. I think with the idea of making them kind of really vintagey. And these are just really fantastic. I just love them. What we've got here is a 21-inch HH vintage ride, an 18-inch HH medium thin crash. On the opposite side, there's an HH dark crash that's also 18-inch, and we have the HH 14-inch medium hats. And these are all, they're a lathe cymbal, but they're hammered, and there's just a fantastic tone on them. The hardware is Tama as well, and the bass drum pedal is a Tama Speed Cobra. In terms of heads, I'm using a bit of a mixture. I've kind of been a Remo guy for a long time, but there's quite a bit of overring on the batter toms on the high and low. So I thought, I'll try some Evans, and I do like coated. They just sound so much warmer. So I'm running these Evans coated G2s, and I've been really happy with them. I'm running them on all the floor toms and the two high toms. On the snare, I'm using a Remo coated Emperor. I just love it. And that's pretty much it for that. The other toms that are not here, the 14 by 14 and the 10 by 7, I guess, those are all running Evans heads as well. As you probably noticed, I've got some microphones set up here. So there's a kick drum mic, there's one on the snare, and there are a couple of overheads. So the overheads are a match set of the Rode NT5s, and the one on the snare is your, you know, your classic SM57. Just, you know, great workhorse or microphone there. And the kick drum mic is a Shure Beta 52. I do have an Apex 325 kick drum mic, which has been really good. But you know, I was trying to get a little more bottom end without having to do a whole lot of EQing. And I am finding the Beta 52 a little bit rounder, a little more robust in terms of what it captures on the bottom end. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. I do have another snare here on the table. You can see I've got a 6.5 by 14. This is a Ludwig 100th anniversary Black Magic snare. So it's the shell, I believe, is rolled brass over nickel, and it is just a killer snare. You know, power but warm. I think that's the brass sort of bringing that element into, you know, certainly some metal snares can sound really not shrill, but almost pithy, even at low tunings. But this is just a killer snare. I bought this way back, I think around 2014, 2013 for about $700. And I was just curious. I went on Reverb and had a look, and my gosh, they're selling for $2,000. So, you know, I guess it's nice to see something appreciate in value, but I doubt I'll ever get rid of that. So that's my metal snare. I do have a bass. I'm not a bass guitar player, but I play guitar, so you know, it's not difficult to transition over to do some basic bass stuff. This is a cheap old Gretsch short scale bass. I think I paid like $350 for it, and it sounds great. It's, you know, I really wanted to get a Fender Jazz, but even the kind of the basic model of the Fender Jazz is pretty expensive. But you know, I know a lot of people that play them, and I know the tones that they give out. And when I played this through a variety of bass amps, it just sounded so nice. And the short scale just kind of makes it really fun to play as well. So that's the bass I'm using. Over here are the guitars that I use. There's 10 slots here. There's 5 per rack. The rack on the right, those are all Gibson models. I've been collecting them for a little while, I guess probably since 2012. The one in the middle is an ES335, and so once I bought that, I was kind of hooked on the semi-hollows, and I went through a few others. I remember having a Hagstrom Viking, which was a great guitar, but my hands, you know, really prefer a beefier neck, and so you know, I've had some guitars, I've sold some guitars, but this is where I've landed. And so what I'm playing here from right to left, I guess, is there's an SG61. Now this is a standard production. It's not like a custom model or, you know, anything like that. So it's a 61 SG with a Vibrola tremolo system or vibrato system. The next one is an ES345. That's one of the newer ones I've got. The ES335, that's the third from the right. Probably the lesser known ES235 next to the acoustic. And the last one is a Gibson J45, which just is fantastic. I did have a Martin D28, and I thought that was so beautiful sounding, but you know, it didn't work for me on my hands. It's just I find for me the neck shape, the neck profile is most of it in terms of whether I'm gonna, you know, feel comfortable playing guitar over time. So no thin necks here. Even that SG does not have the classic slim taper neck. It's a thicker neck. I don't know what it's called, but it's definitely bigger. On this side, I've got the old popular Taylor GS Mini on the end. This is again from right to left. The Strat here is a Closet Classic Pro. So it's a model that came out in 2013 from the custom shops folks there at Fender. And you know, the only reason why I bought it, I didn't need a custom shop. It could have been a regular one, but finding a Fender that didn't have what they call the modern C was impossible, and my hand just requires, you know, a beefier kind of a neck. So that's what they call a mid-60s neck. And so I thought, okay, I'll treat myself. I'll get a guitar that's got the neck I want. And, you know, it just turned out, the whole package just turned out to be a really fantastic guitar. So you can see they put that little custom shop logo there on the neck. But yeah, just it's the only Strat I'll probably ever own. It just does everything. There's a Tele mixed in there. You can see the sweet little blonde. That's an American Professional. I picked that up probably about 2018, I think. I think it was pretty close to when they came out. The acoustic, second from the end there on the left, is a Fender acoustic. I forget the model. Pretty cheap actually, $279, and it plays like a dream. Obviously doesn't have the bottom end that the J45, the Gibson, has, but it's a fun little guitar and it plays really nice. And the last one here is an all mahogany Washburn guitar. Got a great deal on it. I forget which model it is. Retails for, I think, around $700. I got a much better deal on it, and it's a great sounding guitar. Very dark, but sometimes that's exactly what you're looking for there. So those are pretty much the guitars I use in the recording that I'm doing. So let's just go over here. So this is my guitar rig, if you will. Pedal board, obviously, and amplifiers. If you're not familiar with Yamaha, they are digital amps. Basically, they can emulate, you know, classic amps, and they do a really good job at it. So I'll tell you a bit more about that in terms of recording. Here's the pedal board. I'll just take you quickly through that. I've got a pedal train unit on the bottom, and I've got a bolted in power supply system. I forget the manufacturer, Voodoo, I think, or something like that. Pretty much your standard. My effect switcher is a crocodile tail loop from One Control. Bulletproof, it's been super sturdy, and I really like it. You know, the only thing that, you know, if you're being really picky and you need ultimate control, the only thing that, you know, it really doesn't have that would satisfy that level of, you know, control would be the ability to control the order of the effects that are input to each loop. So in this particular case, if you've got, you know, an overdrive into loop 2 and a delay in 3, if you want to use them both, a signal will go through loop 2 and then 3. You know, newer switchers, they'll give you the option of being able to reorder that without unplugging and, you know, reordering the plugs, basically. So that would be a nice feature, but, you know, I'm just not that picky. I know it sounds surprising based on what's here, I suppose, but it's a solid unit. I've got all my switches labeled, and basically, well, just everything from left to right. I've got a Q-Tron from Electro-Harmonix. I'm a big Jerry Garcia fan, so I love that kind of Q-Tron-y effect that he famously would play. I don't know if he was using a Q-Tron, but for me, that's just a wonderful effect. I've got a Free the Tone flight time pedal for my delay. It's a digital delay, fantastic. And I've got this MXR script phase 90, and yeah, just lovely phase effect. I can't imagine anything else. Just one knob, and it's just perfect. I've got an Analog Man, King of Tone for my overdrive. That's the only drive I use. The Yamaha amps do have a booster, which will activate a drive as well, but I tend to not bother using that. The old classic Polytune there for all your tuning needs. Catlin Bred Octopussy. If you're not familiar, it's a fuzz and an Octavia pedal together. Very cool. An EQ pedal, and actually, speaking of that, there's also a red Hall of Fame mini reverb pedal there, the red one. It's a tiny little thing from Electro-Harmonix. That one and my EQ pedal are really only there when I have to use the Fender Custom Champ. If you're familiar with that amp, or maybe if you're not, there's an 8-inch driver in it, so not as much bottom end as you might like. So the EQ kind of helps tweak that slightly. And I'm a reverb junkie. That amp does not have the reverb effect built in, so I just bought this little mini Hall of Fame reverb just for that amp. So that's what I use that for. The dry bell vibe machine for my univibe effect, and over here on the end you can see that there's an expression pedal, and you can use that to kind of speed up the univibe effect, almost like speeding up and slowing down a Leslie speaker cabinet. It's the old Ernie Ball volume pedal, and the last one here is a Clyde Deluxe Wah from Full Tone, and it's a nice pedal. It's got a bunch of cool features. You can kind of pick the the kind of wah effect you want. You can see I've got it set to whacked, so it's very quacky, but I just love that. And then over here I've got a ditto looper just for working on kind of rhythmic phrases on the guitar, and this is the channel switcher for the amp. So what you're going to see here on the amp in a moment is you can see there's a button here for 1 or 2, and that's actually to switch amp 1 or to switch to amp 2, because the Yamaha amp that I use, the head is 2 100-watt amps stacked together, and they function as independent amps. So you can switch between amp 1 and amp 2. This button here allows you to basically combine them. So you can stack your amps. This engages or disengages the boost on whichever amp you're using, reverb on or off, and you can turn your effects loop on or off. I don't use the effects loop. I front end all my effects into the preamp. Kind of old school, but that's the way I do it. So this is the Fender HD100, Yamaha THR100-HD. So that's the head you see sitting on top of the 212 speaker cabinet, and it is 2 100-watt amps. So the top row of dials and switches and the bottom row of dials and switches, those are mirrored. They're the exact same thing on both the top level and the bottom, and each one applies to its own 100-watt amp. So you can see the input. I've got a cable plugged in, a Vox. You can plug in 2 guitars, and each guitar player could have a 100-watt output. And you can play different amp models if you want. You can see here that I've got the top amp is clean and the bottom is crunch. So basically the top amp is set to emulate a classic Fender amp, like a twin reverb or a super reverb or something like that, very spongy, very reverby, if you will. And the bottom amp is configured in crunch mode to sound very much like a Vox amp, an AC-15 or an AC-30. I won't show you because I'd have to turn the head around, but the amp allows you to not only pick the kind of preamps that you want, using those knobs for clean and crunch and the other models, but on the backside you can switch it between if you want it to be a Class A or a Class B on either one of those channels. So you can have just vastly different amplifiers on the top, between the top and the bottom, and you can play them independently, or you can stack them together and play one. The top amp, just kind of a noodling amp. I kind of take it with me upstairs sometimes around the house, and it's the old THR10C, the 10-watt modeling amp. People that know them, people that have them, they love them. I love them. They just sound so fantastic. But the one on the bottom, the head, is the kind of the big brother to that line. In terms of the 212 cabinet, that is a Yamaha 212 cabinet. It's kind of, I guess, designed for the head, and it's got 2 eminence drivers. One is a Tonker, And I think the other one is something like a Patriot or something to that effect. I'm not really up on the Eminence line of drivers. I know the Celestians a little bit more. They sound really good. I've been really happy with them. And one of the nice things about the way the amp works is that you can have your guitar plugged in and you can play the top amp. You can plug in the same input and play the bottom, or you can play them both as a single guitar player. And the output of everything that you do would go to both drivers in the cabinet equally. Alternatively, one guitar player can plug into the top amp, another into the bottom amp on the head, and then each output for each amp would go to separate drivers on the 212. So if you're on amp 1, you'd go into the left driver, and if you're on amp 2, you'd go to the right driver. So, you know, this would kind of fill the spot for two guitar players. So one of the really cool things about the Yamahas, like a lot of the digital amps, is that in terms of outputs, they can do a whole bunch. There is a driver for the Yamaha THR100-HD, the head that you're seeing, that'll make the amp function as an audio interface. So you could just plug your guitar in and your DAW, in my case, I'm using Ableton Live 11, your DAW would pick it up as the audio interface. So that's one method of output. Another method of output is into the 212 cabinet, of course. The one I'm using, though, is I'm using the line outs. So you can see the red tape on the back. There's a line out 1 and a line out 2. And basically, each one of these represents the amps on the front. So line out is amp 1, the top amp. Line 2 is the bottom amp. I've disconnected the speaker cables there to the 212 cabinet because I'm not using it at this moment. I think you're not actually supposed to run them together, but that's basically how it's set. So I've got my guitar plugged into the volume pedal, goes through the rack, the unit, the pedal board unit, you know, controlled by the effect switcher. I use a looper there and sometimes, and then that runs into channel 1. So that's basically all the guitar effects and amplification. And then basically we switch over here, and this is my audio interface. It's a Universal Audio Volt 476p, P for power. So you can see there I've got line 1 out on the amp going into input 1 or channel 1 on the interface, and I've got the other amp, line 2, running into input 2. So I've effectively got a Fender amp plugged into input 1 and a Vox amp plugged into input 2. And so since I'm not running a speaker cabinet, the 212 cabinet, I'm using a couple of near field monitors. These are Yorkville, I think YSJ6 or YSM, I think YSM6s. So 6 or 6.5 inch woofers on them. They are ported. There's a port on the bottom, and they do have high pass and low pass filters and a couple of input options. There's XLR and quarter inch, and they've been really fantastic. Super value. I think I paid for the both of them. I think I paid somewhere around $420 something. Just a great deal, and they sound so nice. So here we've got the my DAW software, digital audio workstation. I'm using Ableton Live 11, and this is standard, so it's between the basic model and the professional. I would like to get the professional, but really this does satisfy everything that I need. In this particular case, what I'm doing is I'm recording a musical piece. There's no vocals, it's just instruments, but I'm going to play all the instruments. I've got most of it done. I got to record a lead track, which I'm going to do today. You can see that the pink track, the colored line at the top, that's the rhythm guitar, and then there's the green one. Doesn't really show up green so easily. That's the addictive drums. So I'm using addictive drums right now to give me my drummer. Basically, I just needed a good solid meter so I could have better timing on the rhythm parts and the lead parts. Once those are all done, once I have that lead done, I'm going to connect the drum kit to those 4 inputs on the universal audio, and I'm going to replace that drum track. But just for a meter, something down that sounds good, and the Addictive Drums plugin sounds super good. You know, very robust, lots of styles, and very tweakable. There's a bass guitar, that's the yellow track, and that was that short scale bass that you saw that I used for that. The little squares of blue, that's actually for a plugin, a track for plugin. I'm using the Waterfall B3, Hammond B3 Waterfall plugin from Universal Audio, and it sounds really, really good. You get just a very authentic Hammond B3 sounds, and you also get a Leslie cabinet effect as well, and with an expression pedal. I can use, like the one you saw on the pedal board, I could use that, and I could speed up and I could slow down that Leslie effect if I wanted to. You know, if you're looking for a Hammond organ sound, I really, really recommend the Universal Audio Waterfall B3. And the little orange tracks in the bottom, those are I did some egg shaker stuff. And so that's basically it. Just one more thing in terms of the Yamaha amp that you've seen. This is a utility that comes from Yamaha for it. It allows you to change a number of the effects that the amp has. They're just not accessible from the front panel or the rear, but they offer you some options in terms of the kind of reverbs that you want, whether you want a small hall, a large hall, or a spring. So those are a couple of the some of the options you can do for reverb. You can set the kind of booster that you want. They do emulate booster type pedals. They don't tell you what they are, but there's a green one, and you know, there's a few different colors. And if you look at them and you know something about boost pedals, you can probably figure out what they're trying to emulate. What you're seeing here, though, however, if you can see on the gray portion on the window at the top, speaker simulation 1, speaker simulation 2. So Yamaha ships out impulse responses for the 2 amps, amp 1 and amp 2. I've got others. I've got some Mesa Boogie ones, and you can buy others as well. Companies like Ownhammer, they make impulse response libraries, and I use that to emulate the different speaker cabinets that I want to emulate. When I've got the head plugged in the way you just saw, which is the line outs directly into the interface. And so that's pretty much it. I've got all my guitar effects. I've got my different amps all emulated through the Yamaha. I've got my impulse responses for the different speaker cabinets and the mic placements on those speaker cabinets. And that all just goes directly into Ableton. That's the Addictive Drum sort of utility for tweaking stuff. I was working on a bass drum, giving it a little more bottom end, so I was tweaking it there. And over here we have a Launch Key Mini. So this is a Novation MIDI controller that I just got a few months back, and I've been using it for those Hammond B3 things, parts, but you know, I'm excited to figure out some other stuff that I can do with it. I'm mostly a drummer, guitar player, but I'm hoping to get some really nice grand piano sounds, and to use that a little more fully. So yeah, really super product. Over here is the Fender Custom Champ. I mentioned when I was talking about the pedal board that, you know, it does not have a reverb effect in. You can see it's pretty minimal. It's just a volume, and you know, your instrument inputs. There's a bit of a gain reduction on one versus the other, but that's it. Super simple, really great sounding. You know, just an amp used on like 1 million records, and you know, so that's just a beautiful amp. I would have to stick my mics in front of that. I've got a few of them. You saw the SM57. I've also got an Audio-Technica AT2035. So, you know, it's not really difficult to put a couple of mics in front of it and get different sounds and run those into that audio interface. Just one little thing I wanted to show. I like to play a variety of drum parts. This bag here of cymbals, these are all the my Bosphorus cymbals. So if you're not familiar with Bosphorus, it's It's a line from a Turkey company there in Istanbul. Bosphorus being, of course, a reference to the Bosphorus River. And so this is, this one here is from the Master Vintage. It's a 22-inch unlathed ride with rivets. So in there I've got a few others. I've got a Master Vintage 20-inch with rivets. I've got 15-inch the Master Vintage Series hats. Again, also unlathed. And I've got a crash, an 18-inch crash, also a Master Vintage Series. And I've got two black pearl crashes, which are really, really nice. So these are super sounding cymbals, especially in a tight space. You don't need a huge amount of volume like the Sabian cymbals would definitely cover that. Definitely a lot more projection. These are a little bit more smoky, dark in pitch. You can crash them. The rides are crashes to me. I mean, I can ride them, I can crash them. So they cover just a huge sonic territory. You could mic them up and they'd project obviously that way, but definitely, you know, when you play them, you think of a more intimate setting, and that's it. So that's basically it. You've seen it all. You've seen the workstation. You've seen the guitar stuff, and you've seen the drums and guitar stuff over here. And that's about it. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you got any questions, you can post them, and I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, bye.